The awakening of the war. The vast expanse of space stretched endlessly before them, a canvas of swirling stars, planets, and moons. To most, it was a serene, untouched frontier, a place of mystery and wonder. But to the Vaskari, it was nothing more than a canvas to conquer. An ancient species, forged from the very fires of the universe itself, they had long since abandoned the shackles of law, governance, and diplomacy. They were a species driven by an unquenchable thirst for power, forever locked in a cycle of expansion and domination. It was in this cosmic theater that a confrontation was brewing, one that would reverberate through the galaxies and shake the very foundations of the universe. At the heart of the Vaskari Empire stood their leader, Arl, a towering figure clad in shimmering armor, his dark, marble-like skin reflecting the harsh glow of the chamber lights. His golden scales, glinting with every subtle movement, symbolized his authority, and his piercing reptilian eyes scanned the room with a cold, calculating gaze. He was a creature of pure purpose, a being so consumed by his drive to conquer that even the laws of the galaxy seemed insignificant to him. As Arl stood in the center of the council hall, a hum of anticipation rippled through the air. The grand chamber was a symbol of the Vaskari's might, its towering pillars and glowing holograms displaying the Empire's greatest accomplishments. Massive warships, mining colonies on barren moons, and a web of alliances forged through brute force. Yet despite all of their power, something was amiss. A new player had entered the galaxy, a species that had caught their attention in the most unexpected way. Humanity. The humans, with their peculiar blend of resourcefulness and recklessness, had ventured into Vaskari space without permission. They had crossed borders that were sacred to the Vaskari, and in doing so, they had sparked the attention of a species that had long grown weary of challenges. The humans were expanding rapidly, using technologies that the Vaskari had never seen before, technologies that allowed them to strip mine entire moons, construct colossal starships, and defend their colonies with a ferocity that had taken even the Vaskari by surprise. Arl's voice rang out across the chamber, slicing through the heavy silence like a blade. This is unacceptable. The humans have broken the galactic laws, the laws that we have fought to preserve for millennia. They trespass on our lands, mining resources as if they own them, ignoring every boundary that has been set in place to maintain order in this universe. With each word, his presence grew more commanding, his clawed hand gesturing toward the vast holograms above him. The images flickered and shifted, showing human ships tearing apart asteroids, their massive drills boring deep into the surface of moons, and colonies sprouting from the barren dust of planets once considered too hostile for habitation. Red overlays pulsed around each image, emphasizing the growing threat humanity posed. Each hologram was a stark reminder of the audacity of the human race, and it sent a ripple of tension through the assembled council members. "I call for immediate military action," Arl continued, his voice rising, his eyes blazing with unbridled anger. "We cannot allow this to continue. These humans must be stopped before they infect the rest of the galaxy with their reckless expansionism. Their arrogance is a disease, spreading like rot through the delicate balance we have fought so hard to maintain." The council hall erupted into murmurs, the holographic delegates shifting uneasily in response to Arl's words. Some whispered in agreement, while others hesitated, unsure of how to respond to this new, unpredictable force in the galaxy. The Vaskari had always been in control, and now this human species, fragile, impulsive, and in their eyes, insignificant, was challenging their authority. From the back of the room, a calm but defiant voice broke through the tension. Ridiculous. The voice belonged to Sandual Poirier, Chancellor of Earth, the representative of humanity. Standing tall, his silver hair glistened under the harsh light, his dark suit a sharp contrast to the towering projections of warships and asteroid mining operations above. His calm demeanor stood in stark contrast to the fire burning in Arl's eyes. Arl turned to face him, his dark eyes narrowing. "You dare challenge me in my own hall, human?" His voice was a low growl, carrying the weight of centuries of power and dominance. "I don't challenge you, Arul," Samuel replied, his tone unwavering. "I simply state the truth. Your people have forgotten what it means to coexist. You hide behind your so-called laws while we, humans, are out there, making a real difference. We are explorers, creators, innovators. Our expansion is not driven by greed, but by necessity and vision. We are not your enemies, but your equals." The council hall fell silent, the tension between the two leaders palpable. For a moment, it seemed as though the very air itself was charged with energy, waiting for one of them to make the next move. Arul's eyes burned with fury, but beneath the anger, there was a flicker of something else, a growing realization. Humanity was different. They were bold, fearless, and willing to stand up to the Vaskari, even in their own chamber. They were not like the other species who had bowed before him, trembling under the weight of his might. "You have no idea what you're up against," Arul sneered. "You think you can stand toe-to-toe with the Vaskari. Your species will be crushed beneath our heel, just like all the others who dared defy us." But Samuel stood his ground, his gaze unflinching. "Maybe we will, Arul, but not today. Not yet. You underestimate us. Humans are more than capable of holding our own, and you'll soon learn that." A slow, sinister smile curled on Arul's lips as he watched Samuel. He could feel the tension in the air, the pressure building. He knew the humans were bold, but this arrogance, this defiance, it was new. For the first time in centuries, Arul felt a flicker of uncertainty. Perhaps humanity was not as insignificant as he had believed. But Arul had made a decision. He would not let this insult go unanswered. And so, he raised his hand, his claws glinting in the light as he made the final command that would change the course of history forever. "Prepare the fleet," he said, his voice cold and final. "The war begins now." And thus, the stage was set for a conflict unlike any the galaxy had ever seen. A battle not just of strength, but of willpower, ingenuity, and the unbreakable spirit of humanity. Arul's belief in the Vaskari's supremacy would be put to the test, and Samuel's determination to prove humanity's worth would lead them into the heart of a war they had never anticipated. As the council chamber's lights dimmed and the holograms flickered off, the galaxy held its breath. The war had begun, and no one, least of all Arul, could have predicted how it would unfold. The cold silence that followed Arul's declaration echoed through the Grand Council Hall. It was a silence that spoke volumes, the calm before the storm. The Vaskari were a people used to having their will enforced without question. But this time, the situation was different. Humanity was not a species to be cowed so easily. Despite their physical fragility compared to the Vaskari, there was something undeniably powerful about the humans' resolve. They were a species whose strength came from their unity, their creativity, and their relentless drive to push the boundaries of what was possible. In the heart of Earth's capital, Samuel Poirier stood before a vast array of holographic displays, reviewing the status of the human fleet as it prepared to defend against the oncoming threat. Earth had always been a peaceful planet, yet in the face of an overwhelming adversary, humanity had no choice but to rally together. The Vaskari's words rang in his mind, each one a challenge, a declaration that could not go unanswered. "Prepare the fleet," Arul had commanded. But Samuel knew that preparation would take time, and time was something they did not have in abundance. The war between humanity and the Vaskari had been thrust upon them, but Samuel knew the key to victory would not lie in brute strength. It would lie in the ingenuity and resourcefulness of the human spirit. Humanity had long since surpassed its early struggles. Wars, famines, disease, and political chaos had once threatened to undo their civilization. But in overcoming those challenges, humanity had learned a valuable lesson. The strength of a species did not come from its weapons or its military might. It came from its ability to adapt, to learn, and to innovate. Samuel knew this all too well. He had seen it firsthand. the way humans could overcome even the most insurmountable odds with creativity, determination, and unity. It was this resilience that had allowed them to colonize other worlds, to invent technologies that defied the limits of known science, and to survive even when the universe seemed stacked against them. But this was different. The Vaskari were not just another obstacle to overcome. They were a threat unlike any the humans had faced before. Their fleets were vast, their technology advanced, and their thirst for domination was unmatched. The challenge ahead was monumental. Yet, despite the overwhelming odds, Samuel remained steadfast. "What do you propose, Chancellor?" A voice cut through his thoughts. The voice belonged to General Lena Calloway, the head of Earth's military operations. Her eyes, though tired, were filled with the quiet determination that Samuel had come to admire over the years. She was a woman of few words, but her actions spoke volumes. She was a leader who knew how to keep her people safe, even in the most dire of circumstances. Samuel turned to her, his mind already racing with ideas. "We don't fight the Vaskari head-on, Lena." "Not yet," he said, his voice steady despite the weight of the situation. "We know they're coming with overwhelming force, but we also know they're overconfident. They believe that because they're stronger, they can crush us without effort. We need to show them that we're more than just a species to be conquered. We need to show them that we're adaptable. We'll fight smart." Lena raised an eyebrow. "Smart, huh? You think we can outthink them?" "I don't just think it," Samuel replied, a small smile forming on his lips. "I know it." The general considered his words for a moment before nodding. "All right, I'm listening." "Humanity's strength lies in our diversity," Samuel continued. "We're a species of creators, engineers, scientists, and visionaries. While the Vaskari have brute force, we have something they don't: ingenuity. We'll use their overconfidence against them. Instead of fighting with sheer firepower, we'll employ guerrilla tactics, hit-and-run operations, and use the terrain of space to our advantage. We'll also leverage our technology, our stealth systems, our ability to adapt, and most importantly, our ability to work together." Lena nodded, already seeing the outlines of the plan forming in her mind. "But we'll need more than just tactics. We need new weapons, new strategies. We can't rely on old methods to fight this battle. If we're going to win, we need to think beyond conventional warfare." Samuel's eyes glinted with determination. "Exactly. That's why I've already begun working with our brightest engineers and scientists. We're developing new weapons, laser arrays, energy shields, and new forms of propulsion that can make our ships faster and more maneuverable. But we also need something else, something that the Vaskari won't see coming." Lena raised an eyebrow. "What are you thinking?" Samuel's expression grew more serious, his voice dropping to a whisper. "We're going to create a weapon that not only disrupts their technology, but also challenges their very perception of us. I'm talking about psychological warfare. We need to plant seeds of doubt in their minds, make them question their own superiority. If we can turn their confidence into fear, we can break their will to fight." Lena was silent for a moment, considering the weight of Samuel's words. The idea was dangerous, but she knew it might be their only shot. If they couldn't overpower the Vaskari, they'd have to outwit them. They'd have to make the Vaskari realize that humanity was not to be underestimated. While Samuel and Lena worked behind the scenes to prepare humanity's defenses, the Vaskari were not idle. Earl's fleet, a vast armada of warships and mining ships, moved swiftly through space, heading toward Earth with a singular purpose: to crush the human resistance before it could even begin. Earl believed his victory was inevitable. He had seen species rise and fall, but none had posed a challenge as intriguing as humanity. Their defiance, their persistence. It intrigued him. But more importantly, it infuriated him. As his fleet advanced, Earl stood at the bridge of his flagship, staring out into the vast expanse of space. His mind was consumed with thoughts of conquest. The Vaskari had long held the galaxy in an iron grip, and they would not let some insignificant human race challenge their supremacy. He would destroy them. Or so he thought. What Aral did not know, however, was that humanity had already begun to fight back in ways he could never have anticipated. The spark of resistance was already lit, and it would not be extinguished so easily. The days that followed Samuel's declaration of resistance were marked by a sense of frenetic activity. Earth, for all its advancements, was still a young species in the galactic community. They had spent their time exploring, colonizing distant planets, and reaching out to the stars, but they had never expected to face a threat like the Vaskari. Despite this, the ingenuity of the human spirit was not to be underestimated. Humanity had always been a species of survivors, and now, facing an enemy far superior in strength and technology, they would have to prove that survival was not just a matter of chance, it was their destiny. On Earth, the bustling headquarters of the Earth Defense Coalition was a whirlwind of planning, coordination, and anticipation. Samuel Poirier, standing before a vast array of holographic maps and star charts, studied the advancing Vaskari fleet. His fingers moved swiftly over the console, zooming in on the enemy's trajectory. The fleet was enormous, an armada of warships capable of reducing entire colonies to ash. But Samuel knew that size alone wasn't enough to win a war. It was the tactical edge, the surprise, and the ability to outthink the opponent that would make all the difference. General Lena Calloway stood beside him, her arms folded as she studied the same map. She had the look of a woman who had seen battle, who knew what it meant to fight for survival. Her eyes were sharp, but even they betrayed the weight of the situation. She had seen the raw power of the Vaskari in the simulations, and she knew what their fleet could do. But she also knew something else. If humanity could make it past the first wave, they might stand a chance. "We're not ready for a direct confrontation with them," Lena said, her voice low but firm. "Their ships are faster, stronger, and their weaponry is far beyond anything we've seen. If we engage them head-on, we'll be wiped out before we even get close." Samuel nodded in agreement, his fingers tapping thoughtfully on the table. "You're right, General. A direct confrontation would be suicide. But we don't have to fight them head-on. We just need to stall them long enough for us to put our plan into motion." Lena looked at him, intrigued. "What exactly are you proposing?" Samuel turned to face her, his eyes filled with a quiet resolve. "We need to hit them where it hurts the most, at their core." The Vaskari are an ancient species, and like all ancient empires, they have their weaknesses. Their overconfidence is one of them. They believe they are unstoppable. If we can make them doubt that, even for a moment, we might be able to disrupt their entire war effort. He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in before continuing. "Our best shot is to strike at their supply lines. If we can sabotage their fleet's ability to maintain its momentum, we can force them to rethink their strategy. Without their reinforcements and supply ships, their massive fleet becomes nothing more than an empty shell, vulnerable to further attacks." Lena nodded slowly. "So we're talking about guerrilla tactics, hit-and-run operations. We'll need a team of special operatives, people who can infiltrate their territory and cause chaos from within." "Exactly," Samuel said, a glint of admiration in his eyes for the general's quick grasp of the plan. "We'll use our stealth technology to sneak past their fleet, target their key supply ships, and cripple their logistical networks. Once they start losing supplies, they'll be forced to turn back or risk a full-scale collapse of their operations. It's the perfect opportunity to strike at their vulnerability." The plan was risky, but it was the best chance humanity had. The Vaskari were formidable, but they had never faced an enemy quite like humanity. Samuel had no illusions about the difficulty of the task ahead. Every mission would be a fight for survival, every victory hard-earned and costly. Yet he couldn't help but feel a sense of resolve stirring within him. Humanity had never backed down from a challenge, and this time would be no different. Meanwhile, on the bridge of Aral's flagship, the leader of the Vaskari stood brooding, his mind consumed by thoughts of the humans. For centuries, the Vaskari had been the unquestioned rulers of the galaxy. No one had dared challenge their authority. And yet here they were, facing a species that seemed to thrive on defiance. The humans had resisted in ways that Aral had not anticipated. The first wave of ships they had sent toward Earth had encountered unexpected resistance, with human ships utilizing stealth tactics and guerrilla warfare strategies that had confounded his fleet. "Report," Aral commanded, his voice cold and unwavering. A subordinate bowed, his voice trembling slightly as he delivered the latest update. "Commander, the human ships have engaged our supply ships in multiple sectors. Their stealth technology is proving more advanced than we anticipated. We have sustained significant losses to our logistics fleet. They've managed to infiltrate several of our key supply lines, and we are now unable to maintain full support for the main fleet." Aral's eyes narrowed. The humans were proving to be more resourceful than he had ever imagined. His fleet was vast, but it was also dependent on a constant flow of supplies. Without that, the momentum of their invasion would falter. For the first time in his long career, Aral felt a flicker of doubt. Could the humans truly be capable of challenging the might of the Vaskari? "We cannot allow this to continue," Aral hissed, his voice growing low with menace. "Increase patrols in the affected sectors. We will hunt them down and eliminate their resistance. No more mercy." The subordinate hesitated for a moment before speaking. "Commander, we've also received reports that the humans are communicating with other species, forming alliances with the Tharvok and the Calyrex. They seem to be rallying support for their cause." Aral's gaze hardened. The Tharvok and the Calyrex. Fools. They will learn that even in their best interests, they cannot stand against the Vaskari. But this changes things. If the humans are uniting other species against us, it's no longer just about crushing them. It's about showing the galaxy that no one, not even the most insignificant of species, can stand in the way of the Vaskari. The weight of his words hung in the air, and for a moment, the chamber fell silent. Aral knew that the stakes had escalated beyond a simple military campaign. This was about control, about making an example of humanity, and anyone else foolish enough to stand with them. Back on Earth, Samuel Poirier and General Lena Calloway watched as the first phase of their plan unfolded. The stealth ships, designed specifically to infiltrate Vaskari territory, darted through the vast expanse of space, their mission clear: sabotage, disrupt, and delay. Each successful mission was a victory, but also a reminder of the dangers that lay ahead. They couldn't afford to make mistakes. As Samuel watched the holographic feed of their fleet in action, he couldn't shake the feeling that their small victories were merely the calm before the storm. He knew the Vaskari would retaliate soon, and their response would be brutal. But no matter the cost, no matter the price of defiance, humanity would fight back. They had been pushed into a corner, but this was where they thrived. Samuel had no doubt that the war was far from over. It was just beginning. The conflict between humanity and the Vaskari was about to reach a turning point. Both sides had tasted the true nature of the battle ahead. The Vaskari had underestimated humanity's ability to adapt and fight back. But humanity, for all its innovation, would soon learn the true cost of defying an empire as ancient and ruthless as the Vaskari. The price of defiance was high, but it was a price humanity was willing to pay.